A billionaire tried to humiliate a black waitress by forcing her to play an $18 million violin. But the moment she played, he froze. In a world full of struggles and second chances, every story hides a lesson worth learning. This is Afnan art, where ordinary lives become extraordinary tales. Sit back, open your heart, and let the story begin. Morning sunlight filtered through the towering glass walls of Crystal Crown Hotel, casting long reflections across the marble floors. Naomi Brooks stood alone in the staff locker room, tying her hair into a neat bun, while half-broken fluorescent lights flickered above her. She could hear the distant echo of rolling carts and clattering glasses from the banquet hall. It was the same ritual every morning. Naomi woke before the city, caught the earliest bus, walked through the service entrance unseen, and changed into a uniform that never quite fit her shoulders. She stared at her reflection, dark curls tightened back, eyes tired but bright. A name tag that read Naomi. She looked like someone who belonged everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The service hallways smelled faintly of detergent and strong hotel coffee. Naomi moved through them with the grace of someone who had memorized every step. She adjusted silverware on long tables, polished champagne glasses until her fingerprints vanished, and carried trays with the silent precision of a ghost. Guests noticed the shine of crystal chandeliers, the expensive floral arrangements, the scent of imported candles, but they never noticed her. Even when she stood inches away pouring their wine, she was simply part of the background, another shadow wearing a uniform. Mr. Warren, the strict yet exhausted floor manager, approached with a clipboard. His tone was firm, clipped by stress. Ballroom service tonight, he instructed without looking up. Private gathering. Ultra-high profile. Do it carefully, please. Yes, sir, Naomi replied gently, her voice barely above a whisper. For a brief second, Mr. Warren paused and met her eyes, as if sensing exhaustion behind her calm expression. But professionalism swallowed whatever sympathy he might have had, and he walked away. Naomi watched him go, then leaned her back against the cool wall and drew in a quiet breath. From her apron pocket, she slipped out a tiny, worn photograph. In the picture stood a younger Naomi holding a violin, her father kneeling beside her with pride shining in his eyes. Music used to fill their small living room every night. Her father once told her that the world would listen to her someday. But when sickness came and bills piled up, Naomi put the violin away and traded dreams for survival. She folded the photo carefully and pushed it back into her pocket before returning to work. The day passed in silence. Naomi wiped down mirrors, straightened chairs, and practiced staying invisible. But the moment she stepped onto the edge of the ballroom, something made her stop. There, surrounded by velvet ropes and soft spotlights, stood a glass case with a violin inside. Its body glowed under the lights, a rare wood finish polished to perfection. Even behind glass, it radiated importance. Naomi stared at it, unable to breathe. She took a step closer, her heart pounding in her throat. A violin like that belonged on the greatest stages in the world, not locked behind glass, not displayed as a trophy for billionaires. She turned away quickly, forcing her emotions back into the quiet place where she buried all her dreams. As she headed toward the kitchen, two housekeepers walked past, whispering with excitement. "Tonight is that private gathering," one murmured. "The world's top billionaires, investors from everywhere, and Lucas Montgomery is on the list," the other replied breathlessly. "He doesn't just collect real estate, he collects violins." Naomi stopped walking. Lucas Montgomery. She had heard the name before. Stories of impossible wealth, reckless challenges, and a dangerous need to prove dominance. Everywhere he went, her pulse quickened. A violin collector, a billionaire, who used money to toy with people. Naomi pressed her palm against her chest and exhaled slowly. "Just get through the shift," she whispered to herself. "Stay invisible. Stay untouched." But deep inside, something stirred for the first time in years. The sight of that violin made her remember who she used to be. Not a shadow, not a servant, but a girl with music burning in her veins. Tonight, she would walk into a ballroom filled with the richest men in the world. Tonight, arrogance and destiny would collide. And Naomi Brooks, the invisible girl, would no longer be invisible. The evening arrived with a thunderstorm sweeping across Chicago. Rain tapped against the massive windows of Crystal Crown Hotel as black luxury cars lined up one after another under the golden canopy of the entrance. Drivers rushed to open doors and billionaires stepped out, dressed in tailored suits, draped in arrogance, surrounded by an aura of untouchable power. Cameras flashed, though no media was invited. This event was not for exposure, it was for control, for decisions that could shift global markets overnight. Inside the ballroom, everything gleamed. Chandeliers dripped light like melted diamonds. Gold-trimmed tables were arranged in perfect symmetry around a small elevated stage. A velvet rope protected the violin display in the center of the room. A soft spotlight illuminated the glass case, announcing its presence without needing words. It was not merely an instrument, it was a symbol. Rare, precious, untouchable. Naomi entered quietly, holding a tray of champagne flutes. Conversation swirled around her. Words like investments, acquisitions, and asset domination tossed casually into the air like small talk. She walked between tables with practiced precision, her steps soundless, her presence almost invisible, and yet her senses were sharp. Every time she passed the violin display, she felt its pull. She glanced at it only for a moment, afraid someone would notice, then lowered her gaze and continued working. At table 19, a group of billionaires laughed loudly, clinking glasses. "Tonight, we discuss the new Chicago real estate takeover," one man boasted. Another man, tall and lean with a distinct southern accent, chuckled. "Relax, our friend Lucas will buy the whole city if the mood hits him." The name hit Naomi like a sudden heartbeat. Lucas Montgomery had arrived. She didn't have to look to know. The atmosphere changed. People stiffened subconsciously. The room shifted around him, and then she heard his voice, deep, confident, careless. "Gentlemen, tonight is not about business. It's about entertainment. Let's enjoy ourselves before we decide which country to purchase." Laughter erupted. Naomi turned, and her breath caught. Lucas Montgomery walked toward the center of the room, a champagne glass in hand. He moved with a dangerous blend of charm and arrogance. His expensive suit fit him with effortless perfection. His posture radiated power. People parted as if invisible forces cleared a path for him. He didn't see Naomi. Of course he didn't. To him, she was just part of the service, a moving fixture. Naomi's grip tightened on the tray. She inhaled deeply, reminding herself of her plan. Stay invisible, finish the shift, go home. Yet as Lucas passed the violin display, he paused. With one finger, he traced the glass surface slowly. "That," he said, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear, "is my newest toy." His audience gasped. "That Stradivarius is worth over $18 million, a man said. "Are you really planning to just display it?" Lucas smirked. "Of course not. It's only fun when someone tries to play it." Someone snorted with amusement. "And who here could play something like that?" Lucas lifted his glass and surveyed the room. His gaze eventually landed on the staff, evaluating them like they were props. Silently waiting to be used, that was when Naomi felt something cold settle in her stomach. She sensed trouble before it even began. Suddenly, Mr. Warren appeared next to her. "Naomi, table 7 needs refills," he whispered, his voice tense. "Hurry!" She nodded and moved, pushing down the unease brewing in her chest. But as she approached table 7, she heard Lucas calling out, loudly enough to silence the entire ballroom. "You, the girl with the tray." Naomi froze. She looked up slowly. Lucas was staring directly at her. A spotlight shifted, illuminating her as if the universe itself had been waiting. Her heart pounded in her ears. The billionaires turned their attention toward her with curious, amused expressions. Naomi took a breath, kept her back straight, and stepped forward. She stopped a few feet from Lucas and lowered her tray slightly. "Yes, sir," she said softly. Lucas didn't blink. "Don't call me sir," he replied coolly. "I'm not your boss." Every billionaire nearby snickered. Naomi kept a neutral face even as humiliation burned beneath her skin. Lucas pointed toward the violin in the glass case, his lips curling into a smile that held no warmth. "Tell me something," he said. "Have you ever seen a real violin?" She blinked, startled by the question. Once every day of her childhood. But she swallowed the truth. "Yes, I have." "Oh?" Lucas raised an eyebrow, surprised. And what could a hotel waitress possibly know about an instrument like that? Her fingers tightened around the tray, but her voice remained steady. "More than you think." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A billionaire nearby chuckled. "Careful, Montgomery. She has some fire." Lucas leaned closer, studying her with interest. His voice lowered, playful yet sharp. "Maybe tonight. We will see how much." Naomi didn't look away. For the first time in years, she didn't shrink. The room filled with electricity, silent, thick, dangerous, and destiny shifted. Tonight, the invisible girl had been seen. The ballroom fell into a thick silence as Naomi stood alone in the center of attention. The spotlight warmed her skin, but her hands tightened around the tray as if it were the only solid thing left in the world. Lucas Montgomery had a way of looking at people that made them feel small, as if he were inspecting a possession he had not yet decided whether to keep or discard. Naomi forced her breath to steady as she stood in front of thousands of dollars in jewelry, wealth, and ego. Every whisper and every stare pressed down on her like invisible hands. Lucas stepped closer, his polished shoes silent on the marble floor. The gleam of the violin's glass display reflected on his face, casting sharp angles along his jaw. He tilted his head, studying Naomi with the lazy interest of a predator that did not need to rush because power always waited for him. "So," he murmured, his voice smooth and dangerous, "if you have seen a violin, can you play one?" Naomi felt every drop of blood in her body freeze. The words carried weight. They were bait, a trap disguised as casual curiosity. She sensed where this was going, but she refused to let fear show on her face. She lifted her chin an inch. "I know how to hold one." Laughter exploded around them, loud and sharp like glass breaking. One man slapped his hand against the table, tears forming in his eyes from amusement. Another billionaire leaned into his friend and whispered, "Not softly enough. That staff from neighborhoods like hers usually held trash bags, not instruments." Naomi kept her face still. She had survived worse comments in life than the arrogance of men who believed money defined intelligence. But something in Lucas shifted. The laughter did not entertain him. He didn't look amused. He looked intrigued, almost hungry. He walked toward the violin display, pressed his thumb to the biometric lock, and a soft beep echoed through the ballroom. The glass case slid open with a gentle hiss. Every billionaire leaned forward. No one breathed. Lucas lifted the Stradivarius violin with care, holding it as though it were a living thing. The spotlight reflected along its polished wood, illuminating it like a sacred relic. He turned and faced Naomi, extending the violin toward her, but his eyes remained locked on hers. "If you can play a single song," Lucas said, voice steady and loud enough for the room to hear, "I will give you $1 million. Chairs creaked. Mouths fell open. Someone muttered that Lucas must be bored to throw away money like confetti. But he wasn't finished. His next words hit the room like thunder. "And if you can play beautifully," he continued, smirking as he leaned closer, "I will marry you." The room erupted. Some men roared with laughter. Some gasped in disbelief. Helena Pierce, Lucas's rumored fiancée, stood near the back of the room with a glass of champagne in hand. Her eyes widened, and her grip tightened so hard the stem of the glass cracked. She looked like she had just witnessed a crime. Naomi stood frozen, her heartbeat pounding loudly in her ears. The room blurred at the edges. Marriage, money, humiliation, all wrapped into a single challenge meant to entertain wealthy men who treated humiliation like a sport. Naomi swallowed hard, the bitterness of years of being stepped on rising to the surface. She met Lucas's eyes. "I am not here for your games." Lucas leaned closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "Maybe," he whispered, "but you already stepped into the arena." Naomi stared at the violin. $18 million of history and craftsmanship. An instrument she had not touched in years. Memories slammed into her, her father's hands guiding hers, his voice telling her that music could open doors that poverty slammed shut. The nights she practiced until her fingers bled. The mornings she woke to silence after the hospital took everything from them. Lucas took another step toward her, closing the space between them. "Play for us," he said. "Show us what a waitress from nowhere can do." The words sliced into her flesh like knives. Naomi let out a slow breath. She placed the tray on a nearby table, Her fingers trembled, not with fear, but with something else. Fire. She reached for the violin. The moment her fingertips touched the wood, a spark shot through her bloodstream. Every whisper stopped. Every laugh died. Every breath in the room held still. For the first time that night, Naomi did not feel invisible. She felt dangerous. Naomi lifted the violin and held it beneath her chin, and the entire ballroom shifted into slow motion. The weight of the instrument felt familiar, like a memory she had tried for years to bury, but had never truly escaped. Her fingers curled around the neck with instinctual confidence. The polished wood was warm under her skin, almost alive. Conversations died instantly. The Billionaire audience, once loud and arrogant, fell into stunned silence as they watched a waitress handle an $18 million violin with the gentle certainty of someone who belonged to it. Naomi inhaled deeply. Her chest rose. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from something older and deeper. Destiny. Lucas crossed his arms, studying her as though she were an unpredictable stock market that suddenly became fascinating. His expression shifted from amusement to analysis, his ego resting lightly behind his calm exterior. He clearly expected her to tremble, to fumble, to embarrass herself, to prove his superiority. He expected another person crushed beneath his wealth. Naomi felt that expectation burning into her skin. She refused to give him that satisfaction. With her free hand, she reached for the bow resting beside the violin display. The bow felt lighter than she remembered, balanced perfectly like the instrument had been waiting specifically for her hands. Across the room, Helena Pierce stood frozen, stunned, furious. She had come tonight expecting to show off her social status on Lucas's arm, to enjoy being the center of elite attention. Instead, she was watching a waitress steal the room without saying a single word. The stem of her champagne glass finally snapped in her tightening grip. Cold white wine spilled onto her gown, but she didn't notice. Her eyes were locked on Lucas, filled with disbelief that he could be so captivated by someone beneath them. But Lucas didn't even see Helena. His entire focus remained on Naomi. Naomi positioned the bow over the strings. Her breathing slowed. The voices of her childhood filled her mind. Her father's soft tone teaching her to feel the music before making it. The hotel ballroom faded away. The billionaires melted into shadows. Her humiliation, her exhaustion, her years of disappearing into service uniforms, dissolved. All that existed were her hands and the violin. She pulled the bow across the strings. A single note vibrated through the air. The sound was fragile at first, a soft tremble like the beginning of a storm. Then it grew. The note stretched, deepened, pulled every ear toward her. Then came the next note, smooth and fluid, pouring through the ballroom like water. Naomi chose not to play something simple. She chose something only skilled hands could master. Adagio for strings, emotion, technical precision, pain disguised as beauty. She closed her eyes and the music took over. The bow danced in her grip, gliding across the strings like it was an extension of her own body. The room responded instantly. Conversations halted mid-sentence. A billionaire held his champagne glass suspended in mid-air, forgetting to lower it. A woman blinked rapidly, trying to hide the tears forming at the edges of her eyes. The melody rose higher, filling every corner of the ballroom, swelling with heartbreak and defiance. Naomi poured years of silence and buried pain into every note. The music climbed, trembling with longing. It felt like a confession, a story told without words. Lucas's confident smirk slowly faded. His eyes widened, and for a moment the billionaire with all the power in the room looked small. He looked human. He stood there, trapped by the music of someone he had hoped to humiliate. His jaw tightened, not in anger but in disbelief. The waitress he thought he owned for a moment of entertainment was owning him. Her playing was not talent. It was mastery. It was soul. The final notes shifted into something soft, almost like a whisper. Naomi held them steady, letting the vibration linger. She opened her eyes, meeting Lucas's gaze directly. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't a request for approval. It was a declaration. She hit the last note, letting it hang in the air. The room stayed frozen. No one clapped. No one breathed. They were too stunned to remember how. For the first time that night, Naomi wasn't invisible. She was undeniable. The final note hovered in the air like a held breath before dissolving into silence. The ballroom remained suspended, frozen in disbelief. Naomi lowered the violin, her hands steady even though her pulse hammered beneath her skin. For a long stretch of seconds, no one moved. Glasses remained midair, forks hovered above plates. Billionaires who owned skyscrapers and continents stood paralyzed, unable to reconcile what they just witnessed with the assumptions they had made about her. Naomi exhaled slowly, letting her shoulders relax. It felt like releasing a weight she had carried for years. She had not asked for a spotlight. She had not demanded attention. She simply played and the world was forced to look at her. Lucas Montgomery still hadn't moved. His expression had shifted from curiosity to awe, and then into something darker, something unspoken. For the first time in the evening, he looked stripped of control, stripped of the arrogance that shielded him like armor. His jaw tightened, not in anger but in recognition. He knew the sound of mastery. He knew brilliance when it stood in front of him. But more terrifying to him than her talent was the realization that she had shattered the narrative he had built around her. She was not a prop. She was not a momentary game. She was power he did not command. Helena Pierce, standing near the back, stared with wide eyes. Her manicured fingers dug into her clutch. She had spent years curating her image to perfection, using money and proximity to power as proof of her worth. Yet here stood a girl with no diamonds, no gown, no pedigree, who captured the room with nothing but strings and soul. Helena could feel her relevance slipping. When Lucas looked away from Naomi and finally noticed Helena's furious stare, she attempted to force a smile, but her voice cracked when she spoke. "Lucas," Helena called out, trying to laugh. "This has gone far enough. You made your point. She played, so give her the $1 million and send her back to work." Every pair of eyes shifted to Lucas. Naomi remained silent. Lucas did not answer immediately. He walked toward Naomi slowly, each step echoing in the quiet ballroom. His eyes stayed fixed on her, studying her like she was a puzzle he could not solve. When he finally reached her, he spoke quietly, but every person in the room could hear him. That was not luck. Naomi held his gaze. No, it wasn't. Lucas looked down at the violin almost reverently. "How long have you played?" Naomi didn't look away. "Since I was 5, he blinked, stunned. 5, that meant years of sacrifice, years of practice, years of dedication. Nothing about her was accidental." He handed her the violin case gently, as if he were returning a crown to its rightful owner. "I owe you something," Lucas said softly. Naomi straightened her shoulders. "You owe me respect." Gasps rippled through the crowd. No one spoke to Lucas Montgomery like that. No one dared, and yet Naomi did, not with pride but with dignity. She placed the violin back into his hands, but she didn't release it immediately. Their fingers brushed. A silent tension surged between them, electric and unmistakable. Lucas swallowed. "You earned the $1 million." Naomi released the violin and shook her head. "I don't want your money." The shock was visible across the room. A billionaire's face tightened. A woman put a hand over her mouth. Refusing money from a man who believed currency solved everything was not just unexpected. It was an earthquake. Lucas leaned in, his voice low. "Then what do you want?" Naomi stepped back, her voice clear. "Nothing from you." Her rejection hit him harder than any words ever had. Lucas stood there, stunned, as Naomi turned away. She picked up her tray from the table where she'd set it earlier and walked toward the service hallway. The billionaire crowd parted for her, not because she was staff, but because they were in the presence of someone they now saw differently. As she disappeared through the staff door, the silence she left behind swallowed every sound in the room. Lucas Montgomery, a man who bought cities and controlled empires, could not move. He stared at the empty space where Naomi had stood, feeling something unfamiliar spread in his chest. For the first time in his privileged life, he had been humbled. Naomi pushed through the staff hallway doors and let them swing shut behind her. The instant the ballroom disappeared from view, her lungs finally remembered how to breathe. She leaned against the cool wall, pressing her palms flat against her thighs to steady herself. Her heart was still racing, her fingers tingling as though the violin were still in her hands. The distant hum of the ballroom muffled into a dull echo, like the world had been reduced to background noise. For years she had been invisible. Yet for those few minutes, every eye in the world had been on her. She could still feel their shock, their disbelief, their admiration. and Lucas Montgomery's silence, heavy, stunned, shaken, still vibrated in her mind. Naomi closed her eyes, letting the intensity of the moment wash over her. She had not just played a piece of music. She had shattered an entire room full of men who thought they owned the world. Her breath trembled as she pushed away from the wall and moved farther down the hallway. The fluorescent light flickered overhead, casting pale shadows on the concrete floor. Her steps echoed softly, steady and controlled. She needed to focus. She needed to finish her shift. The last thing she wanted was to get fired for walking off the floor. But the moment she rounded the corner, a door opened, and Mr. Warren stepped into her path. His expression was unreadable, somewhere between shock and disbelief. For a moment, he simply stared at her, his clipboard loose in his hand. "I did not know you could do that," he said quietly. Naomi swallowed, feeling the aftershock of adrenaline still pulsing. Neither did they. He ran a hand over his forehead, exhaling slowly. "You realize you could lose your job for stepping into the spotlight like that." She held his gaze. "Or I could lose myself by staying silent forever." His stern expression softened. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he gave a single, slow nod and stepped aside to let her pass. Naomi walked down the hallway, her steps lighter now. She felt bruised and exhausted, but underneath that exhaustion was something fierce: freedom. She entered the staff break room and sank onto a chair, clasping her hands together. The fluorescent light buzzed dimly overhead. She stared at her palms, still shaking, still remembering the bow moving like a second heartbeat. In the ballroom, the air shifted. Lucas Montgomery remained exactly where she left him. The violin cradled in his hands as if he feared it might vanish. For the first time in his life, he did not command the room. The room had been commanded by someone else. Someone he underestimated. Someone he tried to use as a punchline. He replayed the music in his head, the raw emotion that poured from her, the courage in her posture, the defiance in her eyes. He could still feel the way the world paused, how time slowed and bent around her. He knew talent. He bought talent. He owned talent. But this was not something that could be purchased. Helena approached him, fury simmering beneath her polished smile. "Well," she hissed under her breath, "you made quite a scene." Lucas did not acknowledge her. His eyes remained fixed on the door Naomi had disappeared through. Helena stepped closer, her voice sharpened into something venomous. "She is staff, Lucas, a waitress. You embarrassed yourself fawning over a girl from nowhere." Lucas finally turned his head, his expression cold. "I did not embarrass myself. I recognized genius," Helena froze. The word stung like a slap. Lucas handed the violin to the security officer standing nearby and stepped away from the stage. Every billionaire watched him, waiting for his reaction, but he didn't offer any. His jaw clenched as he adjusted his cufflinks. "I need a minute," he muttered. He left the ballroom. Naomi sat alone in the break room, staring at the wall, her mind spinning. She thought she had regained her anonymity, slipped back into obscurity where no one could reach her. Then she heard footsteps, slow, purposeful, heavy with intent. She lifted her head just as the break room door opened. Lucas Montgomery stood there. He still looked like he belonged to another world, with wealth stitched into every line of his suit. But his expression was different now. No arrogance, no mocking smile, just an intensity she wasn't prepared for. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. The small room suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker. Naomi rose to her feet, her posture guarded. "What do you want?" Lucas didn't blink. "The truth." She crossed her arms. "About what?" "About you," he said quietly. "No one plays like that without a story." His tone was calm, stripped of ego. He meant it. Naomi could have lied, could have shut him down, could have walked past him without a word. But something in his voice, not his power, not his authority, but his sincerity, made her pause. "My father taught me," she said. "He died." The violin went with him. Lucas absorbed the words slowly, as though each one carried weight. "You played like your heart was breaking," he murmured. Naomi's voice softened, barely a whisper. It was, his breath caught in that moment. The billionaire who thought he owned everything realized there were things money could never touch. He realized she was someone he could not buy, someone he could not control, someone he could only lose. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The hum of the old ceiling ventilator was the only sound between them, vibrating through the small room like a tense second heartbeat. Naomi stood with her back straight and her chin lifted slightly, refusing to look intimidated, even though she felt cornered. Lucas stood only a few feet away, yet it felt as if he had crossed into a space where he did not belong. There was something unfamiliar in his eyes now, something she never expected to see from a man whose life revolved around power. It was vulnerability. He looked like a man realizing that he had stumbled into a story far bigger than himself. Naomi broke the silence. Her voice was steady, though every word came from deep inside her chest. Whatever you think this is, it ends now. I played, the room listened. That does not make me part of your world. Lucas frowned as though her words disrupted something inside him. Unlike earlier, he did not respond with arrogance or a clever remark. He simply stepped closer, slowly, as if approaching something rare that might disappear if he moved too quickly. I was wrong about you, he said quietly, and that is not something I say often. That much is obvious, she replied, his lips pressed into a line clearly unused to being spoken to without fear. He took another step, stopping just short of invading her personal space. You walked out on $1 million. She held his gaze without flinching. Money doesn't impress me. He studied her face, searching for an explanation, searching for a price he could understand. Everyone has a number. Everyone wants something. Naomi shook her head. Not me. The simplicity of the answer rattled him. He had never met someone without a price tag. People asked him for investments, deals, influence, access. Naomi asked for nothing. That made her untouchable. That made her dangerous. He leaned against the door slowly, lowering his voice, attempting a different approach. You could have changed your life. You could have paid for anything you wanted. Naomi's eyes burned with quiet fire. I will change my life. But not because you threw money at me, he paused. He was used to commanding the narrative, to shaping the path, to deciding outcomes before anyone else even realized there was a choice. But Naomi was not a choice. She was a reality that refused to bend. And he did not know how to handle something he could not mold. Finally, he asked, "Why did you quit playing?" The question pierced deeper than he realized. Naomi turned away, running her fingers along the edge of the metal counter. Her voice dropped into a whisper that still held strength. Because life does not care about passion when rent is due, when hospitals ask for payments, when grief burns every bridge you built. Lucas did not breathe. Naomi exhaled slowly, her shoulders lowering with the weight of a past she carried alone. I gave up music so I could survive. Playing tonight was not a performance. It was a goodbye. Lucas took a step forward, unable to stop himself. It did not sound like goodbye. She met his gaze again, and there was a sharp, steady truth in her eyes. You heard what you wanted to hear. He was struck silent. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Mr. Warren called out orders to staff preparing the dessert service. The world outside was moving again, unaware that inside this tiny room something irreversible had shifted. Naomi picked up her apron, adjusting her uniform as if preparing to walk back into anonymity. She reached for the door. Lucas spoke one last time, his voice lower than before. You are not invisible anymore. Naomi froze with her hand on the doorknob. She didn't look back. I was never invisible. People just refused to look. Without waiting for a response, she opened the door and walked out. Lucas stayed behind, motionless, staring at the empty space where she had stood. For the first time in his life, he was not in control of the narrative. He was not the center of the room. He was a man who walked into someone else's story and was surprised to find he was not the main character. He placed a hand over his chest, trying to steady the confusion twisting in his ribs. It was not his ego that hurt. It was the realization that Naomi Brooks was the only thing in the world he could not buy, and the only thing he suddenly wanted. The rest of the night unfolded like a blurred dream for Naomi. She returned to the ballroom floor with her tray, trying to blend back into routine. But everything had changed. The lights seemed brighter. The voices seemed sharper. Billionaires who had not noticed her existence earlier were now staring at her like she was a rare commodity on display. She felt dozens of eyes tracking her every move, studying her the way collectors examine a priceless artifact. Whispers followed her like shadows. That girl. Where did she learn that? She played better than any professional I've hired. I would sponsor her entire career. Naomi ignored them all. She focused on the motions she knew by heart. Pour, serve, walk, repeat. She placed champagne flutes on tables, adjusted silverware, and forced her breathing to stay even. The applause she never received still echoed in her bones. But applause wasn't why she played. She had played, not to impress them, but to remember who she used to be. She reached the far end of the ballroom and set an empty tray on the service counter, taking a moment to straighten her uniform. Her reflection in the polished metal tray startled her. There was fire in her eyes. Not the tired resignation she expected. Something new, something alive. A shadow appeared beside her. Naomi stiffened. Dr. Elias Monroe, a name known only among a refined elite sphere. The world's leading conductor. A man who had directed orchestras in Vienna and London, whose concerts sold out months before tickets even existed. He stood tall beside her, silver hair slightly disheveled, glasses sliding down the bridge of his nose. The look of a man who did not chase music, but lived inside it. Every staff member would have panicked to see him so close. Naomi just stared. "You played Adagio," Dr. Monroe said softly, folding his hands behind his back. "Not many choose that piece willingly." Naomi remained silent, unsure if he expected a response. He leaned in, voice low and reverent. That was not a performance. That was a confession. Her throat tightened. She looked away, but he gently tapped the counter, encouraging her to face him. "You have what cannot be taught," he continued. "This world is full of musicians, but very few have a voice." Naomi swallowed. She did not want validation. She did not want praise. Praise was dangerous. Praise pulled people back into dreams they had already buried. "I'm not interested in going back," she said. "Music is a luxury I can't afford." Dr. Monroe studied her, as though she were a puzzle he was desperate to solve. "Music does not care about bank accounts. It only cares about truth." Naomi shook her head. "Truth doesn't pay rent." He opened his coat and pulled out a small black card, placing it gently into her hand. "If you ever change your mind, call me. No audition, no test. I will tear down every door for you." Naomi stared at the card. Only 4 words were printed on it: Elias Monroe. Private line. Her hand trembled, not from fear, from possibility. But possibility was dangerous. She set the card down on the counter. "I'm not someone your world wants." Dr. Monroe did not reach for the card. "My world wants brilliance. Does not care how it arrives." Naomi turned away. He didn't push further. He simply nodded once with respect rather than pity, and walked back toward the crowd. She watched him leave, feeling her heartbeat against her ribs like a trapped bird. The card remained between her fingers, light as paper, heavy as destiny, across the ballroom. Lucas saw Dr. Monroe leave her side and felt something sharp twist inside him. Jealousy, not of romance, but of influence. Naomi had already turned down $1 million, and now a man who shaped the entire classical world wanted her too. Lucas's pride combated an unfamiliar emotion in his chest. He had never fought for anything except profit, but for the first time, he wanted someone who didn't want anything from him. A group of billionaires approached him. "You should sign her," one of them said. "Put your name on her success. It would be a powerful investment." Lucas's voice hardened into steel. "She's not an investment." "Everything is an investment," the man replied. Lucas looked toward Naomi, carrying glasses with silent strength. Not her. Not this time. He stepped away from the group. In the service hallway, Naomi paused to place empty glasses on a tray cart. She reached into her pocket for a hairpin and accidentally brushed against the card again. She hesitated, staring at the name. Her father once told her that music was a door, but doors required courage to walk through them. Her courage was exhausted. Suddenly, from behind her, Lucas spoke. His voice was lower than before, stripped of arrogance. "If you walk away from this, you might regret it for the rest of your life." Naomi closed her eyes. He wasn't talking about music anymore. He was talking about them. She turned. Meeting his gaze head-on, "I have spent my entire life being told what I should want." Lucas took one step closer. "And has anyone ever asked what you do want?" Naomi's answer left him breathless. "Want a life where I don't owe anything to anyone." Lucas blinked. Caught off guard, she brushed past him, returning to the ballroom. Lucas stood frozen, realization crashing through him like a storm. She was the first person in his life he could not control, and because of that, he was already falling. The event finally reached its final hour, yet the room still buzzed with a strange electricity. Naomi continued serving with calm precision, but people were no longer looking through her. They were looking at her. Wealthy investors who once ignored her existence began approaching with charm polished enough to blind. One man blocked her path near the dessert table. He smelled of expensive cologne, and his smile was too satisfied, like he had already calculated her value. "You should not waste talent serving drinks," he said with a smug tilt of his head. "I can fund your entire career." "Name your price," Naomi stepped around him. "Excuse me." Another billionaire intercepted her near the champagne tower. "What agency represents you?" "I can triple their fee." She continued walking. A third man, younger than the others, leaned back in his chair, eyes lingering on her with hunger disguised as interest. "You would look stunning performing in my private concert hall." Naomi kept moving. Each offer felt like the same invisible chain, just dressed in gold instead of rust. They didn't see her talent. They saw an asset, a product, a trophy. The more they talked, the more suffocating the air became. She felt like prey surrounded by predators wearing designer suits. Her pulse thudded against her ribs like she needed to escape. The ballroom doors opened again with a rush of cold air. A new arrival stepped in. Not a billionaire. A man dressed in a worn navy jacket holding an envelope. His shoes squeaked against the polished floor. He scanned the room until his gaze found her. Naomi froze. It was her neighbor from the apartment building. He rushed to her, breath uneven. "Naomi, it's your mom." Her world stopped. The ballroom disappeared. The lights dimmed. The voices blurred into a ringing silence. Naomi grabbed his arm. "What happened?" He swallowed hard. She collapsed. The ambulance took her to St. Andrew's Hospital. "They need consent for treatment." "They could not reach you," Naomi didn't think. She didn't breathe. She dropped her tray where she stood and ran through the ballroom, weaving between tables, between gasps and confused stares. Billionaires called after her. Mr. Warren shouted her name. None of it mattered. Lucas saw her bolt toward the exit and immediately followed. She pushed through the staff door into the cold hallway and practically sprinted toward the service elevator. The man in the navy jacket hurried behind her, trying to keep up. Naomi slammed her hand against the elevator button again and again. Nothing. Tears stung her eyes. "Come on." "Come on," she whispered. The elevator doors opened at last, but before she could step inside, Lucas reached her. He grabbed the elevator door to keep it open. "Naomi, what happened?" She didn't want to look at him. Didn't want to break down in front of the one man she refused to need. "My mother, hospital, I have to go." "I will take you," Lucas said. "No," she snapped, voice cracking. "This is not your world. This is not your problem." He didn't back away. "It became my problem," he said softly. "The moment I met you." Her breath faltered, but she shook her head, refusing to let him see her fall apart. "I do not need saving." Lucas's voice lowered. "Maybe not. But you shouldn't have to run alone." The elevator dinged. She stepped inside. Her neighbor followed. Lucas placed his hand on the door again, but this time Naomi grabbed his wrist gently. "Stay here." He swallowed, something raw flickering in his expression. He released the door and allowed it to close between them. As the elevator descended, Naomi pressed a hand to her chest, trying to steady the storm inside her. She wouldn't crumble, not now, not yet. The doors opened to the underground parking deck, and Naomi ran toward the exit, her shoes slapping the pavement. Rain hammered down outside, soaking her instantly. She didn't care. She pushed forward into the storm, heart pounding, lungs burning. Back upstairs in the silent elevator lobby, Lucas stood alone, and for the first time in his life. He didn't know how to help. He didn't know how to fix it. He only knew one thing with painful certainty. He couldn't lose her. Rain hammered the pavement in heavy sheets as Naomi sprinted toward the curb, waving desperately at passing cars. Her breath came in choked bursts, not from running but from fear. The hospital. Her mother. The world blurred around her into streaks of silver and headlights. A rideshare finally slowed, splashing water onto her uniform as it stopped. Naomi yanked the door open, slid inside, and slammed it behind her. "St. Andrew's Hospital," she gasped to the driver. He nodded and accelerated, tires skidding through the wet streets. Naomi wiped rain from her face, though most of the wetness came from tears. Her fingers trembled in her lap as she stared at the raindrops racing down the glass. She could hear her heart pulsing in her ears. Every memory of her mother's tired smile burned behind her eyes. All those nights her mother listened to Naomi play violin on their apartment floor, swaying gently, whispering, "Don't ever stop playing, baby. Music is how you breathe." But then her mother got sick and Naomi stopped everything. College, auditions, competitions. All she cared about was keeping her mother alive. Her fists tightened. "Please hold on," she whispered into the storm. Back at the hotel, Lucas stood at the entrance, drenched in rain but unmoving. He had walked outside without a jacket. The valet offered him an umbrella, but he didn't take it. He was staring into the street Naomi disappeared into. His jaw was tight. His chest ached. A billionaire beside him smirked. "Forget about her, Lucas. She's a spark. You need diamonds." Lucas didn't even turn his head. "You wouldn't know the difference." Then he walked straight into the rain. He didn't care that his suit was ruined. He didn't care who saw him. He pulled his phone out and dialed someone with urgency that bordered on panic. "Connect me to St. Andrew's Hospital," he ordered the moment someone answered. Now. Because if Naomi needed something, anything, he would move heaven and earth to make it happen. The hospital's automatic doors slid open as Naomi burst inside. The bright white lights made her blink rapidly. She rushed to the front desk, gripping the counter with both hands. "Brooks," she said, breathing hard. "My mother." They brought her in. The nurse typed quickly, scanning the monitor. "Room 16. She's stable for now." Stable. Naomi nearly collapsed from relief. She rushed into the hallway, pushing past gurneys and nurses and the beep of medical machines. When she reached room 16, she froze at the doorway. Her mother lay on the bed, oxygen tubes resting gently beneath her nose. Her chest rose and fell steadily. Naomi stepped forward, her voice a fragile whisper. "Mom." Her mother's eyelids fluttered open, revealing tired but loving eyes. "Baby?" Naomi rushed to her side, taking her mother's hand and pressing it to her cheek. Tears streamed without restraint. She shook her head. I thought I was going to lose you." Her mother smiled softly, lifting a trembling hand to touch the side of Naomi's face. "You can't get rid of me that easily." A sharp laugh broke out of Naomi, choked with emotion. She pressed her forehead to her mother's hand. For the first time that night, she allowed herself to breathe. Minutes passed before quiet footsteps filtered into the room. Naomi didn't need to turn to know who it was. She could feel the shift in the air. Lucas stepped into view, soaking wet, hair dripping, tie loose, the image of a man who had run through a storm without thinking twice. Naomi straightened, wiping her face quickly. "What are you doing here?" Lucas didn't speak right away. He simply stood there, breathing hard, searching her eyes. "I couldn't let you face this alone," she swallowed. "I told you, you don't belong in this world." He took slow steps toward her, stopping only inches away. "Then let me prove you wrong." Naomi looked down, overwhelmed. She was exhausted from fighting, exhausted from building walls. "Why are you here, Lucas?" He inhaled deeply, then exhaled, his voice raw. "Because for the first time in my life, I want something money can't buy." Her breath caught. Lucas glanced at her mother, then back to Naomi. His voice softened as he reached into his pocket. He held out something small, her father's violin photo, the one she had dropped earlier in the chaos. "I picked it up after you ran," he said gently. "I thought you'd want it back." Naomi stared at the photo. For years, she carried that memory alone. Now someone else had seen it, held it, respected it. She took it from his hand, slowly, carefully. Her mother looked between them with knowing eyes. "You played tonight, didn't you?" Naomi nodded. Her mother smiled, weak but proud. "Your father would have cried." Naomi closed her eyes, letting the words sink into her bones. Lucas spoke again, voice steady. "Naomi, you don't have to go back to being invisible. I'll fund anything you need, school opportunities, concerts." Naomi cut him off gently. "I don't want to be someone's project." He stepped closer, heart in his throat. "Then be my partner. In music, in life. Not because you owe me anything, But because I want to earn a place in your story, silence filled the room. Heavy, breathtaking. Naomi studied him, searching for any sign of ego or control. Instead, she found sincerity. She reached out, took his hand, and squeezed lightly. I don't need saving, she whispered. But I don't want to walk alone anymore. Lucas's eyes softened. Then don't. In that hospital room, with rain streaking the windows and machines beeping softly, something shifted. Not grand, not dramatic, just true. Naomi turned to her mother, squeezing her hand. Mom, I'm going to play again. Her mother smiled, tears slipping down her cheeks. Lucas stepped beside Naomi, not in front of her, not behind her, beside her. The storm outside began to quiet, as if the sky itself was finally at rest. Naomi's journey had not ended. It had only just begun.